Another week, boys. This week at Tassi. This is my weekly news recap of stuff in the industry, and it's been an interesting week in a few different ways. I will pick a couple stories here, talk about what I'm playing at the end, and yeah, you guys can let me know what you think about everything that's happened this week. I figured we would start with kind of the biggest news of the week, which were the Game Awards nominations. I am definitely not going to go through all of them, but it's probably worth discussing Game of the Year. Those were rolled out, and it includes Astrobots, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio. Many of those are expected to be on there. There are a few surprises. Definitely the biggest controversy is Shadow of the Erdtree being eligible and being nominated for one of those slots, given that it is an expansion. This is a weird kind of gray area that the Game Awards seems to have been pushing, especially this year, and it seems like they were really highlighting this idea that you could nominate expansions for Game of the Year, mainly because Shadow of the Erdtree was out, which I don't love. I've made my position pretty clear on this. I debated this for a while, but ultimately, Shadow of the Erdtree is my favorite thing I played this year. It is also not a full game. If this was something that was standalone, like Miles Morales, which uses the Spider-Man city, but is its own standalone game, sure. This is not that. You very much not only need to own Elden Ring, you need to have played a significant amount of Elden Ring to even beat the boss to unlock the expansion in the first place. As such, I don't think this should be under consideration for Game of the Year. I think there should be a separate category for expansions and DLC. People are like, oh, there would be nothing in that. There's a good amount of stuff that would be in that. And like, you may not know every expansion or big patch or whatever that's come out for every game. And obviously probably Erdtree would have won this year, but I think there's certainly enough things to make a full category for that. And Lord knows there are some extraneous categories we probably don't need in the Game Awards. Another story is, I didn't know this would happen, but Black Myth Wukong did in fact get a nomination. It reviewed okay among critics, but if you look at Shadow of the Erdtree and Black Myth Wukong, in terms of Metascore, I think it's one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen. I think Wukong's at an 82 or something, which is good, but among the nomination class, I'm a little surprised it landed one here. Obviously, it's the most successful game of the year, I think. I don't know what Black Ops numbers are going to be, but it sold, I think it already sold 30 million copies. Massive in China. I think 85-90% of sales are in China. Huge hit. So it's nominated here. I would be shocked if it won. It will probably win Best Action Game because of the weird Game Awards setup where if something is nominated for a category and it's also nominated for Game of the Year, it has to win that category. I don't really see how it doesn't. Other than that, I think the rest of these, Astrobot, Final Fantasy, Metaphor, are pretty standard. Balatro is the one that stood out among a lot of people as a really, really low budget, lo-fi card game. I'm going to get into that later, but there has been some kind of controversy that it was there. Controversy mainly among people that have not played Balatro. So I think if you played it, you'll get why it's there. So that's the list. We can move on to something related to Shadow of the Erdtree in that Sony is in talks, apparently, to buy FromSoftware's parent company, which would then let them own anything they make going forward. And the larger company would also give them more access to manga and anime stuff and give them even more kind of a monopoly than they already have after owning things or buying Funimation and merging that with Crunchyroll, and they have a lot of anime there. But obviously the big gaming part of this is Sony potentially owning FromSoftware. This would raise a lot of questions in terms of, are you going to need a PSN account to play Elden Ring and other games like that on PC? People are not going to love that. And then, of course, the exclusivity question, where would this be a situation like Microsoft when they acquired a big company and they left, most of its stuff multi-platform? Or would this be Sony being like, nope, these are all PS5 exclusive now, and maybe we'll release them on PC a year and a half after they come out? I don't see how this is good. Just taking something that is multi-platform and then potentially forcing something like a PSN login and then maybe taking it off more platforms. Don't really think that's good for gamers. I get that you could say this is a big console war win or whatever. And I know there's some people saying like, oh, hypocrisy, Microsoft bought Activision. And like, I didn't think that was good either. I'm not one of those people who is cheerleading that. I don't think consolidation at that level is good for the industry, even if that sub did stay multi-platform. So was not a fan of this, was not a, was not a fan of that. And we'll see if that happens. Supposedly this company like approached Sony about this to avoid some sort of takeover by someone else. We don't know if this is for sure happening. It's not even like officially confirmed by Sony, but we should know more in maybe the next couple weeks. So if that happens, it would be a big deal. No idea what the price would be there. Sony is not Microsoft in terms of essentially unlimited money to spend. So this would probably be a pretty sizable acquisition for them relative to their total size. So that will be a whole thing if that actually comes to pass. Something I was involved in this week were early previews for Avowed. This is the new Obsidian game that is, as of right now, an exclusive for Microsoft and Xbox and Game Pass and all that, without some sort of indication it's going to come to PS5. Microsoft's position before everything kind of got all crazy with the exclusivity things was that if they were making new original IP, it was going to stay Xbox exclusive. This is the argument they were making for the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and they cited something like Starfield as, this is a new IP for Xbox. This is not going to go to PlayStation. So far, that's true. Although recently Phil Spencer kind of backtracked on that and said there are no red lines and anything could go over there. Not everything will, but there's nothing off the table. Anyway, as of now, Avowed will be an Xbox exclusive, and it's shaping up what looks like to be a big win for Xbox next year in 2025. Almost all the previews I saw were just relentlessly positive. I think I saw one mixed preview, but like everybody was like, this is just looking really good. And I think I offer a unique perspective in that before this, I've not really been excited about this, and I did not think it looked particularly good. Granted, yes, I am a fan of Obsidian and I should have faith in Obsidian, but like everything being shown here did not really feel like this was going to be particularly amazing. I thought combat especially looked really stilted and awkward, and sort of the conversations with NPCs. It just didn't, it looked like kind of a cheaper imitation of Elder Scrolls. And it is a cheaper imitation of Elder Scrolls, although cheap in the sense meaning money, not meaning like it's, flimsy and cheap. It's very fun. I really enjoyed my time with it. Combat, the thing I was worried about the most, is probably the most fun part of my experience with the game. It feels really meaty with melee weapons and in ragdoll physics, smashing people with hammers. There's visible stun meters that you can build up and do finishers. There are block meters that you have to break with power attacks. The diversity of weapons in play here is one of the coolest parts, where, yeah, you can have sword and shield, blah, 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 all your basic stuff. But you can have like a wand and shield, a wand and sword, a spell book that casts its own set of spells outside of your innate abilities. I didn't find any guns, but there are guns. I think there's like pistols and shotguns and rifles and things. And you can, have a pistol and a sword. You can, the potential here for merging all these different kinds of classes is vast. And even, this was like a 2-hour expansion, or 2-hour preview. And I know some people put way more time into it than that exploring, but the fact that you could kind of set up all these different builds, quote unquote, this early, even though you weren't like upgrading them per se, gives me a lot of faith about kind of how build crafting will work in the future of this and how much fun it has the potential to be without being like fully locked into like, you're the mage, you're the rogue. Like, you can do that if you want, but there seems to be a lot more blending here. The world is really pretty. They have this kind of unique aesthetic of rainbow. I don't know what else to call it. It's very colorful. It is certainly not the kind of gray, grim, brown, you normally see from like medieval games in most of those zones, which I think is a really interesting departure. It is, you are tasked with trying to kill off this supernatural fungus that's infecting this island, and that manifests in like, making monster creatures and turning people's minds crazy. And like, yes, Last of Us has mushroom things, but it's not the same as that. It's different. And the early plot seems cool, as do kind of the initial quest you're getting, where this feels like a lot of what people have wanted lately, where there's like skill checks based on dialogue stuff and giving you new options for quests. All the quests I played were more elaborate than they appeared initially and had different pathways and different options, even the small quests, which is kind of an Obsidian trademark and something that I think we've lost. It's easy to compare this a lot to Starfield, and a lot of the stuff that kind of Bethesda rolled back, Obsidian seems to be kind of leaning harder into for this. So I think a lot of people are going to like that. I'm impressed. I really wish I could keep playing it more. I'm really looking forward to it next year, when before I was like, I don't know about this. And now I'm on board, even after, this short amount of time. Pivoting to, the main game here, Destiny 2 launched Act 2 of episode Revenant this week. This brought back Tomb of Elders, which, is a reprisal of Prison of Elders. I really like the activity. I think it's very cool. It seems like a more efficient and fun setup of the Coil. Obviously, it was inspired by the Coil in many ways, where you do these sort of loops of encounters, but they have fixed some aspects of it, like making the traversal segments not horrible trap rooms and just sort of like running through hallways and killing things. Also, if you complete optional objectives, it shortens your overall time. So like you can blaze through this in 35 minutes, as opposed to the Coil being like closer to an hour and Onslaught being 70 minutes, essentially, for probably less loot, I would say, in Onslaught. And this just seems like a really kind of efficient way to farm things. I think it's been really well set up. I will take this time to issue an apology to Travel Danielle, who I randomly ended up playing a match with last night, and we died on the final boss. We got destroyed by some Lucent Hive. I was the last man standing, and I couldn't do it, so I apologize. Maybe next time. The problem here, I think, is what you're actually farming. I'm just not really super enamored with this loot pool. There's like 2 weapons that I think are pretty good, that I've been searching for. I really like the submachine gun and the pulse rifle, both of which can have the new jolting feedback, I think, which is good, and I've been enjoying that. But like, I don't really have anything I'm going for. This isn't really even a crafting versus farming debate. Like, if this was crafting, I think I probably would have already had everything crafted from Onslaught, so there'd be even less reason to be farming this outside of, a couple new weapons they're introducing. So it's kind of like, why am I doing this? And mainly it's just because it's fun, and I'm just trying out some new builds. I've really been into these arc builds lately. The new blind perk being unlocked for the new row of modifiers has been really fun to do. I have a warlock build with Queenbreaker, and I have a hunter build with Raiden Flux, and like it's a lot of fun to do that kind of stuff now. And yeah, so I'm having a good time with it. But like, what am I farming for? I don't know. And then finally, the game I am now currently playing all the time, as of like 48 hours ago, is Balatro. That is, the game of the year nominee that everyone's like, what's Balatro? What is this doing here? But every time you talk to someone playing Balatro, they're like, oh my God, Balatro. It is a card game that is loosely based on poker, but you get a lot of different kind of modifiers in terms of Joker cards, planet cards, tarot cards, in a way that kind of modifies your hand as you try to rack up points based on what you're playing to beat a target score. It is a roguelike in the sense that you have runs and you try and get as far as you can, increasing your multipliers and the amount of points you can put up. A lot of strategy involved, a lot of heartbreak if you draw the wrong cards, as is the case with poker. The way it's set up is extremely addicting, because it's definitely one of those like one more run things. A lot of roguelikes are like this, Hades, one more run. Pick your roguelike of choice. It's just really interesting to see this done in card game format. It's also nice because this is not, Marble Snap or Hearthstone, where you're buying booster packs for real life money. It is just, it's all self-contained. It's a $10 game. Like, I tell you to give it a shot, but if you value your free time, maybe not, maybe don't do that. It's very good. I do actually recommend everyone try it out, especially for that cheap of a price, and you can kind of see what everyone's talking about. Maybe you won't get, crazily addicted to it. I'm sure it doesn't have a 100% conversion rate, but if you give it some time, I think you'll understand what people are talking about. So anyway, this is the week in gaming. I know I can't cover every story, but that's what's caught my eye the most. I won't be doing this next week because it's Thanksgiving and I'll have a lot of family in town, so I don't think I'll be able to do probably much with video, except for maybe the beginning of the week, but no weekly this week at Tassi. So Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.